The next one was, how did I build a habit of reading ABA books? I find a lot of people ask questions about test prep services, getting ready for the BCBA exam. I'm an adjunct professor for a couple units for like an entry course into the principles of behavior analysis online. And so I wanted to make something about this technique that I was taught. I don't know if it's going to be useful for you. You can measure and figure that out on your own, right, with your behavior analytics skills. But there was a technique that I use still to this date that I was taught when I was trying to consume a bunch of things. First of all, conceptual stuff, philosophical stuff. You know those articles in JUB or those writings maybe by Skinner and such that when you first stumble on them and you try to read and you're just like struggling to get through. And it might be that you're super stoked. It's not that there isn't like a motivation operation for this, but what it is that there's a lot to get through. Or maybe it was written 60, 70 years ago, like something like this. And it's just not what you're maybe used to. You're learning new words and such. That was how I struggled. That was my issue getting into behavior analysis. And I still struggle, depending on the content, of getting through it, even though I know it's valuable. It's just like the process of getting through it. So what I have, for example, here is Science and Human Behavior by B.F. Skinner. That was one of the books that at the same time during graduate school I was reading alongside this verbal behavior analysis. And one of these is like, the foundation of why B.F. Skinner kind of built his version of radical behaviorism and how the field was influenced. I had to read this just for school, but I was trying to read it prior to try to get an understanding and kind of a leg up so that I wasn't so stressed during the year. But I also wanted to read this one because verbal behavior is something that you're doing in a clinic all the time when you're working with children and trying to teach them language skills. So it was very easy to kind of move towards this one, but this one was also extremely important. The technique that I was taught by a brilliant behavior analyst by the name of Mark. Don't know if he follows any of this sort of stuff anymore. If you are, Mark, what's up? Was very simple. It was to read first a chapter of the thicker, harder thing, whatever that is for you. In this case, Science and Human Behavior. I'd read one chapter of that. And then what I'll do is I'll hop over and I'll read a chapter of the one that I can use immediately. Here's the key thing. Conceptual, philosophical stuff, things like this, or leaning in this sort of direction, these are harder to get through. They don't have as immediate applicable, it doesn't have immediate applicability in your life. However, verbal behavior analysis, this actually teaches me ways to assess, teach, and measure whether or not I'm effectively teaching verbal behavior analytic skill sets. So verbal behavior, teaching children how to language. And this was something where I could read this, I could go into my practice the next day, I could immediately use it. Not only are you reinforcing in this kind of weird pre-Mac principle, first read this, then this, and this starts to become valuable, but you get to actually transform lives the next day with the reading that you've used, of course, under the proper, training, supervision, guidance, etc. I use that method to go through, I'm not kidding, dozens of books per semester, or a dozen or so books per semester. I was thinking dozens per year while I was in graduate school. And honestly, that's how I was turned on to things like a lot of the conceptual philosophical stuff that I share, the inner behaviorism, the Cantors, the gold diamonds, etc. It's how I ran across Francis Mechner that we mentioned earlier. All right. So that is my hack. It's nothing special. What you're going to do is you're going to pick up two books. You're going to pick one up that is immediately applicable, and you're going to read first the one that's not immediately applicable, and you're going to alternate those back and forth. Chapter a day with each. You're going to fly through books. It's okay to take a day off now and then, but fly through that sort of content. So if you're watching this afterwards, that's my hack. That's it. Really simple. All right. Thanks. Like, share, subscribe.